Let's move on to another guy who's heading very much in the other direction, Miff. It's Jota, who's set for this money-spinning move to Saudi Arabia. So news started to break late last week that he was on the verge of an incredible move to Al Ittihad with wages somewhere in the region of £192,000 per week on offer. I covered the details of this one again with Anthony Joseph of Sky Sports News. He was one of the guys who initially broke the news, and as I say, you can listen to that podcast right now, after this of course. Matt, what's your general take on the move? I think you'd mentioned you've got a few different opinions on it. The numbers are mind-blowing, aren't they? Absolutely,
and I think if you go back and listen to previous podcasts, I've never been a fan of Jota. Stupid hair, stupid moustache, and I think it's really good money for him.
Yeah. Gutted to see a guy like that leave?
No, it's the model in action. I hate speaking like that because ultimately you support your football club to see the best team in the park. Our best team involves Jota playing. He is just such a lovable guy, clearly gets it as well, but we signed him for £6 million to sell him for more than that. Had we sold him in Europe, I think we might have got between 12 to 15. Somebody's come in with 25 million, probably had to get the DFA out for Peter Lawwell when that bid's come in. But it suits all parties. Now you could argue going there to what is effectively exhibition football currently might not be the best thing for Jota, but why would you not go over there for a couple of years and take that money, and you've still got time to come back.
He'll be 25 when he comes back.
You've still got time to come back. You're going to play with Benzema, and obviously there's a lot of focus on how much he looks up to Ronaldo, going to the league that Ronaldo's playing in. And let's be honest, if the Saudis decide so because of the money they have at their disposal, if they come, they can buy other prominent young players for emerging leagues, if you want to call it that, maybe not the top 5 leagues, because that's where Jota would likely have been heading, is to a top 5 league. They can buy that talent at that age, bring them in, they then progress in the Saudi league, sell them back to the big leagues in Europe. The way this is going, I think you'll see some sort of link up with the Saudi leagues and UEFA at some point in the future, whereby there's a link into a larger Champions League. I think that's the way that it's going to go, much like what's happening in golf, much like what's happening in tennis. But for this transfer as a set piece on its own, makes inherent sense for Celtic. £25 million is a ridiculous amount of money for somebody like Jota. I'll be gutted to see him go, but it's one of those ones that makes sense for all parties.
Yeah, James, if the Saudi Arabian League can become our new Southampton and start just scooping up all their players, that would be something. Let me give you some of the numbers involved across the board. So, as I mentioned, 192 grand a week, just short of £10 million a year. Celtic will receive I think 30 million euro is the quote, which is 25.8 million. And he's got 4 years left on his deal. So Celtic are right to hold out for a premium. Maybe didn't expect to land that jackpot. Benfica, importantly here, they'll receive 30% of the transfer fee, not 30% of the profit, as has been reported elsewhere. Again, Anthony Joseph confirmed this. So whatever the figure is, if it's 20 million, they'll get 30% of that. James, which is
6 point something.
Quick maths, that's good. 6-ish. Age-wise, Jota turned 24 in March there. He could go and do a couple of years at this, pick up 20 odd million, little by way of tax, coming off of that, and return at 26, 27 years of age, and then go into Europe and do what he wants to do. So from a player's point of view, it's not even one to think about, is it? Or is it? There's different moral questions about going to Saudi Arabia, but what do you think comes in?
Pick your despotic ruler. We live in a country that's not got a clean sheet, so I wouldn't be too fussed about that.
Well said, son.
That's the Qatar.
Well said.
That's the Qatar argument, about the World Cup and stuff. It's like the finger pointing for some. So don't get me wrong, don't agree with anything or much of what Saudi Arabia do, but where are we and where's he been and stuff like that. Portugal themselves, no clean sheet.
Oh right, we're getting a bit deep here.
Very true.
Let's move away from that, lads. But
sorry.
He is at the very least suspending any hopes or dreams he has of breaking out the national side and being a big player in Europe, isn't he?
Don't know now. Ronaldo's obviously still playing international football.
Ronaldo's Ronaldo though.
I know, but there's
That's
managers.
true.
There's Portuguese managers. It's his youth manager that's signing him, isn't it?
It's Nuno Espirito Santo.
Aye, but he was
Spurs.
Was he not involved with Jota when he was a youth or something like that?
Oh, not sure. No. Jeez, should really do research before we record, man.
Be an informed podcast. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
So maybe is you can't deny that it's a lesser football theatre, and it's exhibition. But what they're trying to do is move it to the next level beyond that.
I remember when Oscar signed for Chinese Super League and Hulk and all
yeah.
those players.
Brendan Rodgers nearly went there.
No, Brendan
Tried to take
And
Dembele.
Dembele.
No. So there's, I think there's more of a sustainability around what the Saudi League's going to offer. I think they'll be here for a while. As for Jota, but there's this romantic notion about how we view football in Europe, but ultimately if you're getting offered 192 smackers a week, or 192,000 smackers a week, you know, Jeddah, here I come.
I read Chris Sutton's article, I'm sure you lads picked up on it as well, and I had mixed thoughts on it. It's easy for Chris Sutton now, as an ex-pro, to say, oh, why is he taking that? You should never do that, you've sold your career down the river. Nobody offered Chris Sutton 192 grand to go and jump ship, and I think he might have thought about it had that been the case.
I don't think he would have thought about it. They'd been right there.
He'd have been off.
It's the same argument as Ange in many ways. I think that what hurt most for me was the fact Ange was first out the door when I didn't expect that, but in the cold light of day, he's taking an opportunity somewhere. Yes, he's getting paid more money, but for what he sees as a better opportunity. With Jota, I do genuinely think that's how he views it. It is more money, but it's because it's a league where Ronaldo's playing, Benzema's playing, you know, a growing league. It's a high profile move. I suppose in some ways it's lucky for us because I think we've got more money for him than we would have got had we sold him. But without the Saudi interest, I think we would have got another year out of him. I don't think he would have moved.
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't think he would have
I think
moved
it'd have been a year.
With the Champions League, yeah, it would have been another year. So for us to get to 25,
I think
just
it would
now,
more than that.
But I think if we're being frank, Ange didn't expect Spurs to come in. Jota didn't expect nearly 200 grand from Saudi to come in. But it epitomises football now, and we all know that money talks, and that's just what's at play here. You know, these kind of moves can come out the blue, and that's what's happened for both of those deals.
and I suppose that's what is bothering me the most, is that there's been so much unexpected flux in a very early part of the season, or so soon after the end of the season, and it's got me just kind of questioning where we sit in all this. Celtic, I mean by that, and it just seems to be this continuous shuffle that I hope we don't get lost in. I think we just really need to find our place in it. What sort of club do we want to be? And I think the next 3 to 4 weeks are really going to tell us that.
Somebody I was speaking to made the point that we now know that players and managers move on after 2 to 3 good years at Celtic, which is fine to a point, and that's the model. But what you cannot do is build that momentum that might just give you a crack at doing something notable in Europe. We were on track for it under Ange going into this season. As you say, Miff, about 4 weeks ago, you thought, right, okay, let's see what the Champions League looks like next year. The team have grown, he's going to add more signings, and that's all up in the air now. Manager's gone. Manager's gone. Top players in the form of Jota have left. Others may still leave, and you're not back to square one, are you? But you're certainly taking a back step. And Rodgers now it might end up being closer to a rebuild than just a tweak that Ange would have been making.
I think we're going to do something that we hadn't planned on doing. The plan was to get closer to your Benficas, your Sporting Lisbons, your Ajax kind of models, and that's kind of where Ange was putting us with Jota being a perfect example. But with the focus being on the Swiss Model Champions League, I think we're going to spend on a much higher level of player, guys who aren't necessarily going to be developed and sold on, but just to get you into that level. And then you'll have your Toms and your Tilios and all that stuff coming through next year and making that, going back to the Benfica type model. But I think it's so important that we get this right this year.
Do you see us breaking the 9 million transfer record we paid for Edward?
More than once, yeah.
This summer?
Yeah.
More than once?
Yeah.
Watch this space. Miff, just purely from a Brendan Rodgers point of view, how do you replace a talent such as Jota? You know, he's been such a huge part of the success the last couple of years. Iconic goals, big goals in the Champions League. He's done it all and then some, and, how do you fill that gap?
He has, but I think in general, I think it's those moments that stand out more than I would say his general play. I think he was a producer of moments rather than somebody who I think was necessarily very consistent over 90 minutes when you watched him, or 75 minutes. He just kind of stepped up to the plate. So it's that we'll be needing to replace. Can you replace somebody like Jota with someone who maybe played better over the course of a 75-minute period? I think it's achievable in the budget that we've got. But there was just something special about Jota and, that chip against Rangers, just that he's got his forever moment in that. Mm-hmm. And I suppose that's where you just kind of be pragmatic about it and say thanks. for that. But it's just a shame that he's not hanging about for longer. I think he's got to get better, and it would have been nice if he'd get better with us. But money talks in the modern game. As for Rodgers, I don't know if you've seen it. I think it was Tam Selleck's son that done it when he got asked, "Will you be here for the 3 years?" And he's like, "I'll be here for 3 years unless," and he didn't know really what else to say. And he's clipped in a bit now with Winston and Stevie the bookie. "You're thinking about doing that again, aren't you?"
see on that. The fan media was watching that.
I was absolutely killing myself. "You're thinking about doing it again, aren't you?"
The fan media room was here, and the media room was in there. So we were watching that in Sky Sports, same as everybody else kind of thing. See when I just said again, there's an audible gasp.
Don't.
Just
we don't,
keep it
we
easy,
don't want to love you. Just produce the goods. It's
So
fine.
when he ultimately finished his quote, I think the quote was, "I'll be here for 3 years unless I get emptied before then." Much hilarity in the room. Haha, right, but please don't do it again. So let's see what happens there. Rumours obviously continue about other possible exits beyond Jota. So the Thiago Hatate link to Spurs is still doing the rounds. Abada to Ajax is another one. James and myself have got it from a pretty good source that Kyogo's on the verge of signing a new deal, and I think that'd be a huge boost to the fan base, given that we're losing Jota, we've lost the manager. Miff is currently sporting a dazzling Kyogo t-shirt available from Rabbit98, I think, to give them a shout out. So, but yeah, it'd be a huge boost, Miff, if somebody like that signed on, wouldn't it?
A crossover of my two loves, Kyogo/Celtic and Electric Six. I think if you keep Kyogo and Vickers, regardless of who goes, that's a good window. And add to the squad, obviously. I'd love Hatate to stay, but I always got the feeling this would be the summer he would move on. O'Reilly too, but I think maybe only one of them will go. I think O'Reilly and Rodgers, that's a kind of fit for me. I think that is a good
it's
fit.
a great fit. Listen, I've mentioned it now several times. It's not a shameless plug-in, but Anthony Joseph goes into detail about the fact that Brendan Rodgers likes working with intelligent footballers. There's a real there was a real rapport with him and Stuart Armstrong, for example, and he seemed to get the best out of guys who were maybe a bit deeper thinkers and quite focused and really dedicated to improving themselves.
Good looking.
Good looking as well. Matt O'Reilly definitely falls into that bracket, and I think that could be a fascinating development if they two work closely together to see if they can improve his game.
Have you seen the photo of O'Reilly on his holiday?
Have I seen it?
Good grief. Good grief.
He's putting everybody to shame. He's putting the whole world to shame.
He's gorgeous, isn't he?
Moving on. James, do you think we could still lose one or two other key players? Hatate's one that certainly continues to be mentioned. Do you think there's any other big names that could exit? Just before I get your answer as well, the window's open for nearly another 2 months. It runs till the 1st of September.
I think we'll lose what we're going to lose early doors.
I thought that was it. That was a comment.
We'll lose who we lose and we'll buy who we buy.
A bit more detail.
More insight next week.
I thought the specs were coming out as well. I was like, oh, here we go.
That's the way. So the only, a bit like yourself, so Kyogo's not on my absolute must-keep list, but Carter Vickers is, and Calmac is. Everybody else is available.
But somebody you mentioned, and I completely agree with you, is Johnson. I think, see if you've got Johnson, Vickers.
Mikey Johnson?
No.
Alistair Johnson.
Settle down.
It's like, wait
Gee,
a
I
minute.
know Brendan's back, but come on. Tino was up out his seat there in his orange jumper.
I want to talk about that though.
There was Johnson at right back, Vickers, another centre half, seen as Jacinta's away, so maybe Big Carroll's away as well. And it's got to kill me to say it, but
if you want to level up for Europe,
if you want to go for Europe,
I know.
Greg Taylor worked well in the inverted fullback. It was a perfect fit for him at the time. If he's been asked to go back to traditional,
that's the bit that
I don't think he can kick on. I'm just going to call it just now. He's been great for Celtic. He had a huge season last season. I'm not sure if it'll work at Celtic for him under Brendan Rodgers.
I disagree in saying I think he can still kick on. It's just that will he be as effective in what would be regarded as a more traditional? Because you need to remember he played his full career there until he came to Celtic. So I still think he can kick on, but I think we need genuine competition for him, if not an improvement in the left back area, because clearly Bernaby's not going to provide that. We need bolstered in that area.
I think this system will work better for Bernaby. I suppose if the fundamentals aren't there though, if he can't defend, then the question or the jury's out on that. But I think he might have more success under Rodgers. We'll find out in the early pre-season games, but I think we might see a leaning towards Bernaby over Taylor.
I think irrespective, a signing's got to be made. One of them is going to slip out of the squad, and it's a first team player that we need to sign for that position. And if Bernabei or Taylor can show that they can challenge for it, then we need that, and that's fine. But nah, none of them. It's just levelling up for Europe. None of them have got the level at the moment. Bernabei, fundamentals defending, he's a winger.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. I've said for a while now, I think the big gap is left back, and somebody to genuinely challenge Joe Hart, if not eventually succeed him moving forward.
It's time
to go.
Aye.
The rumour is he's going to the MLS next year after this season, but we'll see. Any other notable gaps in the squad before we move on from this chat?
I mean, you just want to talk about Mikey Johnson, don't you?
We're going to do just a full Mikey Johnson episode next week, so don't worry about that.
We need another striker.
I'm for striker, 100%.
We need another striker.
100%.
We continue to be linked with another fella from South Korea. Sorry, I don't know his name. And he is desperate to come.
Yeah.
He's basically saying he'll pay
not
it out
left
of his
winger?
own salary. I'm not sure. I thought he was a forward.
No, more of a winger. I think we need an out and out number 9 striker, and Kyogo and him. This guy will trade it between them. But if
What about Big O-Town? You've not mentioned him.
development, he's
Still?
not got it yet. No way, nowhere near
I
it.
think he could kick
No,
on.
I
I think I've got a lot of hope for Big O.
No.
Yeah.
Clumsy as you like.
Anything you want.
The other Big O. We'll get to all of that though in the next few weeks. We'll fully assess the squad. There'll obviously be a lot of movers and shakers coming in and out, so we'll see how it all plays out.